Hey everyone, welcome back to What Next? And this week we're going into part 2 of my John Hughes movies, and this time we're going to do The Breakfast Club. Now, we're going way back on this one, 1985. I was still very little, wasn't probably really watching movies at that point. Again, I saw this one later probably in the 90s, I think right around the time it hit its 10-year mark, and it become, like a cult classic by then. I'm pretty sure in the theaters this was pretty much a hit because you had a lot of big name actors at the time for the mid '80s, and Judd Nelson, Ringwald, Emilio Estevez were all big names at the time, and then Anthony Michael Hall's coming up from a couple big movies. Ally Sheedy was up and coming too, so you had a pretty good cast at the time for this one. So I just got done watching this one, and I'm paying really close attention at this time, and it's pretty interesting when you watch this back as an adult versus maybe as a teenager at the time. I mean, I wasn't a teenager at that time, so I couldn't really relate to it. But, so let's dive into this one. So let's jump in with the character cast. So just like the poster says, they only met once, but it changed their lives forever. So looking on all this from that post line, it sounds like they're only going to meet one time in their life. So that's what was one of the big things I'm thinking of right now, is because they always say during the last part of the movie, Brian in the middle, he's the one that asks the questions like, hey, what happens on Monday? Mondays they're back to school, and what happens when they see each other in the hallways? Do you wave? Do you ignore each other? Like, was it kind of like a one night stand thing? Like they got in there and they said what they had to say to each other. It was kind of like a teenage therapy, and then they just move on with their lives. You just kind of look at each other like okay, I know what they're doing, what they did, but we'll just leave it alone. So I remember watching this back then too and thinking, what does happen on Monday? Because a lot of things changed over these. So let's jump into that. So let's just start off with Andrew. So Andrew's the athlete. He says he has a meet Saturday, so I don't know if it was that Saturday or the following Saturday. So I'm not sure if he gets picked up and goes right into his wrestling meet, because these guys are in school for essentially 9 hours for detention. Like, it's an all-day detention, which is a really long detention in my opinion. But Saturday school is Saturday school. So him, I'm curious, all right, does he go to his match? Does he win? After everything that happens, does he have a different point of view on what he's doing with himself? Like, as far as his wrestling career, like, does he see, is this not something he wanted for himself after all? And also too with Allison, do him and Allison continue seeing each other? Do they start dating? What does that look like? Because clearly, Andrew's one of the popular kids, and Allison is not. She's probably a loner, sits by herself, or probably goes outside and eats lunch by herself next to a tree or something. So how does that dynamic change both of them? Because if they start dating, all of a sudden Allison's going to have more status, whereas Andrew's status may drop a little. You know how they do the statuses in high school, to where people may think, why is he dating this chick, and what kind of issues and problems does that bring up for them? Same thing with John and Claire. Same thing, Claire's one of the most popular girls in school. John is kind of that that hoodlum thug that shows up, always causes a problem in school, but he's always at school just to get in trouble. Like, that's his thing. Like, he, rather than just ditching and going off and doing whatever he's doing, he shows up to school, but just to get in trouble. Like, that's his thing. I mean, we've all seen kids like that in high school. Like, they just kind of show up and never really grasp the concept of wanting to be there. They just want to cause trouble and create problems, unfortunately. So same thing with them. Like, what happens with that dynamic right there? I think that's probably the biggest one everyone was thinking about, is what does that look like on maybe just past the Saturday? Like, who knows? Maybe he sees her later that night, or maybe he sees her Sunday, or I don't know if they wait till Monday, because it seems like Claire really likes him, because he's completely different than any other guys in her circle. She's probably used to, it's the 80s, probably like, the preppy type that, popular guys, everybody knows who they are. But it sounds like everybody knows who John is too, but for the wrong reasons. So that dynamic is going to be completely different for everybody. it's going to be that they're walking in and everyone's, why is she with him? How did he get her? What's going on here? So I'm curious what kind of issues that would have created for them as a couple, or if ultimately maybe they try it for a couple of days or a week or so, and then, sometimes high school relationships just flame out as soon as they begin because something in their circle just isn't working, and then they just break up. So I wouldn't be surprised if they tried dating for a bit and then it just fizzled out because they're just two very different people. Now, as far as Brian's concerned, Brian just, he's kind of left out on his own. They don't really say, unless I missed it, they don't really say what grade these people are. I don't know if they're seniors, juniors. Brian, he kind of gives off like maybe a little bit of a freshman vibe, but he's also in some clubs, so maybe he's a junior, maybe he's getting closer to graduating. Clearly, his pressure is to get good grades and get to a good school. We've probably all felt that same way growing up as kids, being in school. Our parents want us to get good grades and get into good colleges. But for him, I'm curious what goes on with him past this, because clearly he's got some mental issues he's got to work through. Like he brought a flare gun to do some damage to himself, which is a little weird because he wasn't smart enough to know that a flare gun probably wouldn't hurt him too well. But I've never seen anyone shoot themselves with a flare gun, so I don't know what kind of damage that would do. So it probably would have definitely really hurt him, if not killed the poor guy, unfortunately. But moving forward, I think he sees things a lot differently now because he's kind of viewing everything from different point of views. He's got all these, essentially almost like a representative of each clique in the high school in detention with him. So I think going forward, he starts understanding that there's going to be more to life than getting good grades and going to a great school. So I'm curious to see how this changed him, and also talking to these people about, how he has issues at home with his parents who always want him to get good grades. They kind of make him see that, look, just be you, be smart, get your grades, but at the end of the day, it's not going to define who you are as a person. So, same thing with Allison. Allison she's a compulsive liar, probably a loner at the school. I think it's hilarious that she shows up to detention because she's got nothing better to do. Now, as far as the vice principal concerned, Mr. Vernon, who's running it, you would almost kind of think he'd have kicked her out. You're taking roll at a detention. He should have had 4 kids, not 5. And I would have, it could have been like, hey, get out of here. We're not here to take care of you because you got nothing better to do. I just thought that was weird that nobody told her, nobody noticed she wasn't supposed to be there and asked her to leave. Because you would think as an educator, you don't want a kid there that you have to be responsible for that isn't supposed to be there. But yeah, and then, you got John's dynamic here. He's and that's when we're curious about John going forward too, because he's clearly been in Saturday school before this, and he's going to be in Saturday school after this. So you see his dynamic with these people in the detentions. So he kind of, he goes in and he has to mix things up and get everybody in a huff. So what does he do next Saturday? He's going to be in there with a new group of people that have Saturday school, and the Saturday after that, and Saturday after that for 2 months, right? They got him. So I'm curious how he handles himself through those Saturdays and what kind of chaos and drama he has going through with what other people are in detention with them. But that is what I got on this one. Thanks for watching. If you look into this one, there was a sequel planned for when these guys were in college, but kind of fell apart and the director passed away. So unfortunately, we never got to see what that would have looked like. That would have been an interesting concept to see these guys meet back up in college and how their lives have turned out. Maybe Andrew's in college wrestling, Claire's still popular in college, Brian could be in college too, a brainiac. Allison, they don't say about her grades, but maybe she gets into college and she's there, and then John is probably still dating Claire, who knows, and then just shows up, or maybe he just is walking along and they see him. So, but yeah, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next time.